So you go over there, and what is it like to go over to Russia? Did you understand and speak Russian? Did you have to learn that? Did they speak English?
So I was over there in the late 90s. It was a totally wild time to be there. And I think looking back at, maybe why Alma wanted me to be there was, probably because I was such a wild kid and I was so lost and doing so much kind of fucked up stuff. That
So you just pack up your shit?
Yeah, man. And back then, no email, no
Right.
phone. You go over there and it's like, you don't talk to anybody. You don't talk to anybody from your life here. And I think I think she knew I needed to get out of here. And so I think that was part of it for her. But, Russia, I can't, the way I would describe it is unbelievable beauty with unbelievable brutality. For me, there's no way I would be doing what I do today if it wasn't for my time spent there. You had this unbelievable appreciation for the arts. On every corner, there's a statue of a playwright or a poet or an actor. Being an actor was an enormously masculine thing to do. It was the training itself was highly rigorous. From playing college sports and doing fight training, it was by far, without a doubt, the most disciplined and physically strenuous work that I've ever done in my life.
How so?
So basically the way that the school works is, you have thousands of kids that audition, and then they take 100, and then every semester they'll cut that class in half. So you're kind of fighting for your life the whole time you're there, and they'll graduate 10 kids. And these kids are coming from all over the country, and it's really kind of like, if you get into that school, it's kind of like this golden ticket. It's kind of like, there's at the time, there's 10 times more theaters in Moscow than there were in New York. Theater is religion there, and I'll definitely explain to you sort of why that is, especially coming out of communism and how important theater was and the role it played. But if you graduate from one of those schools, it's not like in America where a lot of theater training is very coddling and it's very like, okay, you can't really play sports, you're not the best student, but come to the theater where you can be a tree and everybody's kumbaya and we get along. If you can get through one of those schools, you're funneled into one of the major theater companies. It's such a huge achievement. They're kind of guaranteed employment after that. And the people that get the honor of teaching in Russia, it's the highest honor you can achieve. So my teacher, Oleg Tabakov, he'd be the equivalent of like Robert De Niro here. It's so if an acting teacher walks into a room, it doesn't matter even if you're in public. If you're a student of that school, you have to stand up, and you can't sit down until they sit down. And there's just this unbelievable respect that's built in. You need to learn acrobatics. You have to train ballet. You have to do
acrobatics.
Acrobatics.
So you were training in acrobatics and ballet while you were learning acting?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And
how do they structure that?
How do they structure what?
How do they structure that kind of training?
So it's at first, in the first year, look, in the first year you're there, there's no text. All of the training is in your voice and in your body, and in rhythm. You learn rhythm, which is something that's like not taught here.
Rhythm of communication, rhythm of dancing.
Everything. So rhythm of objects, like literally just learning. It's studying rhythm. So you and I would be we would be tasked with putting on a show, completing rhythms, like off rhythms and how do I explain it? Like I'll give you an example. Like one of the training exercises would be training your attention, your concentration, right? So you would read a newspaper article, and they would tell you to concentrate on one paragraph, and you would read that to yourself. And while that's happening, everyone in the class would be asking questions. Say, Jamie, what color socks are you wearing today? He would answer. Then Jamie would say, Joe, what did you have for breakfast? You would answer. Somebody else, and we would go around and everybody would, while you're reading the article. Meanwhile, the teacher would be clapping, snapping, or coughing. When it was over, he would point to anyone in the class. You have to know how many times he snapped, how many times he coughed, how many times he clapped. Then he would go around and he would say, what did Jamie eat for breakfast today? You would have to know all that. And then he'd have you stand up and you would have to recite the paragraph that you just read. And you would have to be able to answer any of those questions. So it's these extra, and that's kind of what the method was. And then when you get into the acrobatics, it's really getting just much more limber. You know, I played football and baseball. I played in college. I was very sort of, you know, I lifted weights. I was a very just tight person. So it was just like partner stretching the shit out of yourself, and then learning how to do, you know, have people kind of climb up your body, learning how to, you were either a support, I guess the equivalent would be like gymnastics or some sort of like, you know, high level tumbling, but you had to do all that, and ballet as well. Yeah, I mean, not until the second year are you actually, you know, speaking text. You know, all of it is just movement based, observation based.
Wow, so it's almost like a boot camp. Like they're building you up.
I think so. And then every couple months, they let you know that whether you're allowed to come back or not. And so you have people's, you know, dreams kind of shattered. And I think more than anything else, man, it's the vitality of it. You know, look, during communist times, public gathering was outlawed. So, you know, you couldn't go to church. You couldn't get a group of people together and speak. You know, audiences were illegal unless they were politically based and controlled by the Kremlin. So there were a couple state-based theaters, state-run theaters in Moscow, one of them being the Moscow Art Theater. But they had to do pro-state shows. And the thing is a lot of these people, you know, Meyerhold, for example, he's one of the most famous Russian directors. He was lauded by the state as this, you know, unbelievable hero of the Russian theater, and you know, Stalin. They would go and they would see his plays, but then somebody looked at it, and all of a sudden they said, you know what? I think there's actually an anti-state message here. They executed him in his apartment. Ooh. So actors were sent to prison for being in a play that all of a sudden somebody just deemed as anti-state. And you know, for me, you know, my main teachers, you know, they did this play called Cinzano, which was about three guys. One of them lost their moms, three best friends. One of them lost their mom, and it's just the three of them sitting in this apartment drinking a bottle of Cinzano and just sort of lamenting about this loss. And they've been putting this play on for 30 years once they were my teachers during communist times. So they would do this play in subway tunnels and abandoned buildings. Had they been caught, they would have been imprisoned. Anybody who was in that audience would have been imprisoned for going to watch that show. But they did it anyway because it was that vital to